good evening, or good night. And whenever you happen to be listening to this, welcome. You've found your way to transcendent history. A quiet place, a slow place, a place where history doesn't rush you, and where it's completely okay if you fall asleep before the story is done. Tonight's story begins with something unsettling. Not danger, not fear, but cold. The kind of cold that doesn't shout. It waits. The kind of cold that spreads quietly across the land. The kind that freezes rivers solid, that turns breath into mist, that presses down on the plains until the world feels empty and endless. Here's the question most of us carry, whether we know it or not. How did anyone survive this? Before heated houses, before electric blankets, before walls stuffed with insulation. How did Native Americans stay warm, sleep, raise children, and live full lives in winters that could last for months? That's the mystery we're stepping into tonight. And here's the gentle twist, the contrarian thought that surprises most people. They didn't just survive winter. In many ways, they were better prepared for it than we are now. So, if you've ever wondered how people slept through freezing nights on the open plains, if you've ever been curious about bedtime history that doesn't feel like school, if you enjoy sleep stories or history to fall asleep to, you're exactly where you need to be. And if you drift off halfway through, that's not a problem. That's the whole point. For now, you don't need to do anything at all. Just listen and let the story carry you. Before we go any farther, take a moment to notice where you are. If you're lying down, feel how the surface beneath you is holding your weight. If you're sitting, feel the gentle pull of gravity. Your shoulders don't need to be tight. Your jaw doesn't need to work so hard. You can let your breath come in slowly and leave just as slowly. No counting, no fixing. The story will keep going, whether you pay attention to every word or not. Tonight, we're traveling back, far back, to a winter world of snow and silence. Picture this, a vast plain stretching out in every direction. No roads, no lights, just land. The grass that once waved tall and golden is gone now. Buried, pressed flat under layers of snow and ice. Rivers don't flow anymore. They sleep beneath thick skin of frozen water. Trees stand bare, their branches thin and dark against a pale sky. Sound behaves differently here. The snow absorbs it, softens it. Even footsteps feel muffled, as if the world itself is trying not to wake anyone. The wind moves slowly, not rushing, just passing through, dragging thin curtains of snow behind it. And above it all, a sky so wide it almost feels heavy. Stars look sharper in winter, closer, as if the cold has pulled them nearer to the earth. This is the frozen plains. And if you were standing out here alone, without shelter, the cold wouldn't attack you. It would simply stay. It would seep through clothing, through skin, through bone, which makes the next part feel almost impossible. Somewhere out there, in all that open cold, there is warmth. Not loud warmth, not blazing fires seen from miles away. Small warmth, carefully hidden. A faint glow behind layers of hide, a thin line of smoke rising straight into the still air, low shapes pressed gently into the land itself. Winter camps. Before we step inside one, pause for a moment. Think about what you already know about Native Americans and winter. Many of us picture hardship, suffering, bare survival. But here's the quiet truth. History doesn't always emphasize. These winter camps were not desperate shelters. They were planned, refined, improved over generations. This isn't a story about barely making it through the night. It's a story about design and care and deep knowledge of how heat moves, how wind behaves, and how bodies rest best when they're close together. That's what makes this bedtime history different. And now, very slowly, let's move closer. You're walking across the snow now. Each step presses down with a soft crunch. The air feels sharp in your nose. Clean, cold. Ahead, the ground dips slightly. Not at the bottom of a hill where cold air settles, and not at the top where wind bites hardest. Just right. That choice alone tells you something. These people knew winter like a neighbor. They didn't fight it. They worked with it. Snow has piled up against the sides of the shelters, smooth drifts, not messy, almost intentional. That snow isn't a problem. It's insulation. Already the story is changing. You approach one lodge. From the outside, it's quiet, still, almost asleep itself. The entrance is low, on purpose. Cold air sinks, warm air rises. A low doorway keeps the worst of the cold outside and keeps warmth pooled inside like water in a bowl. You pause, and then you step in. The change is immediate. Behind you, cold. Ahead of you, warmth. Not hot, not stuffy, balanced. The light inside is soft, orange, firelight that flickers gently, not wildly. You smell smoke, but not choking smoke, clean smoke, controlled. The fire sits at the center of the lodge, small, steady. This isn't a roaring blaze. That would waste fuel and overheat the space. Instead, the fire is patient. It knows it has all night. Above it, a smoke hole opens to the sky, just wide enough. Someone long ago figured out exactly how big that opening should be. So smoke escapes, but heat stays. The floor beneath your feet isn't bare earth, it's covered. Mats of woven reeds, layers of dried grass, softened by time and use. Already, the ground feels different here, not biting, not stealing heat from your body. Around the curved walls, sleeping areas rise slightly above the floor. That matters. Cold sinks. Warmth gathers higher up. Beds are not beds the way we think of them. They are layers, layer upon layer. Grass, mats, buffalo robes, furs. If you've ever wondered how did Native Americans stay warm at night, this is the answer hiding in plain sight. Not one thick thing, many thin ones. Trapped air does the work. The same idea your winter jacket uses today. Only they understood it centuries earlier. Families sleep close together, not because they have no space, but because shared warmth is powerful. Children sleep between parents, little embers, warm and breathing. You might smile at that image. It's human and timeless. And if your eyes are starting to feel heavy right now, that's perfectly okay. You don't have to stay awake to follow this bedtime story. Here's where the story gently pushes back on another modern idea. We tend to think privacy equals comfort, but in winter, closeness is comfort. The lodge breathes with the people inside it. Air circulates slowly. Fresh air pulled in near the ground. Smoke and stale air drawn upward. Nothing is rushed. The walls are thick with overlapping hides, each seam turned away from the wind, each edge weighted down. Even the door faces away from the strongest gusts. That's not luck. That's memory, generations of watching how storms move across the land. This is knowledge you don't find in books. This is knowledge earned by sleeping through many winters and waking up. If you're drifting now, half listening, half dreaming, you're doing this right. Let's stay here a little longer. Listen. The fire crackles softly. Someone shifts under a robe. A child sighs and settles deeper into sleep. Outside, the wind tests the walls. It presses, slides over the curved shape, and then it moves on. Inside, the warmth holds. This is the secret warmth of the frozen plains. Not loud, not dramatic, reliable. This lodge is only one version. Across North America, Native Americans built winter homes in many different ways, each perfectly suited to their land. Tipis on the plains, wigwams in forests, earth lodges tucked into hillsides, different shapes, same wisdom. We'll visit them all, slowly, but not yet. For now, you're safe here. If your thoughts wander, let them. If sleep comes, welcome it. The sleepless historian in you doesn't need to take notes tonight. History is doing something better. It's keeping watch while you rest. And when you wake, whether that's in 10 minutes or at the end of this long, gentle night, you'll know something new. Not just about Native Americans, but about warmth and patience and how humans have always found ways to care for one another, even in the coldest places on Earth. Just listen and let the story carry you. And now that you're inside this first circle of warmth, we can slow down even more, because winter camps weren't just somewhere to hide. They were a system, a quiet, smart system. And the more you look at it, the more you realize something a little funny. Modern people love to brag about being advanced, but if you dropped most of us onto the frozen plains with a coat, a phone, and a bad attitude, we'd last about 12 minutes. Then we'd start negotiating with the wind like, okay, you win. So tonight, let's do the opposite. Let's respect the people who already solved the cold. And let's do it slowly enough that you can fall asleep to history. If your eyes are heavy right now, let them be heavy. You don't have to power through. This is bedtime history. You can drift. The fire in the lodge is still steady. It's not roaring. That's important. A huge fire feels impressive, but it's not always smart. Big fire eats wood fast. Big fire makes too much smoke. Big fire can make the inside too hot. Then you sweat. Then the sweat cools. And suddenly you're cold again. Winter doesn't just punish the unprepared. It punishes the dramatic. So the fire is small, but it's constant. And it's placed right in the center, like the heart of the home. If you look closely, you notice the fire isn't sitting on bare dirt. It's in a shallow pit, sometimes lined with stones, sometimes with packed clay. And those stones, they're not just decoration. They hold heat, they store warmth, then give it back slowly, like a warm cup you keep holding even after the tea is gone. Have you ever warmed your hands on a mug just because it felt comforting? Same idea. Only here, it's survival and comfort, both. And as the heat rises, it meets the roof. And the roof is clever too, because the roof isn't flat. Flat roofs catch snow. Flat roofs sag. Flat roofs collapse. These lodges are rounded, sloped, curved. Snow slides and settles in a way that doesn't crush the frame. And here's the part that sounds strange until you really think about it. Sometimes the snow on the outside helps. Yes, snow. That thing that makes you cold. It becomes a blanket on the roof. It blocks wind. It traps warmth. So instead of seeing snow as the enemy, they use it. Contrarian thought number 1 for tonight. Winter gives you tools. If you stop treating it like a personal insult, you don't have to beat winter. You can learn its habits. Now, look at the doorway again. Low entrance, small opening. It makes you bend. And that's not only about heat. It's also about wind. Wind loves big openings. Wind loves straight lines. Wind is basically a thief that steals warmth and laughs while doing it. So the entrance is often turned away from the wind's direction. Sometimes there's even a short tunnel or a little screen, a simple barrier that breaks the wind before it reaches the sleeping space. It's like cupping your hands around a candle flame. You're not fighting the air. You're guiding it. And that right there is the kind of intelligence people overlook. Not flashy intelligence, not look at me intelligence. Quiet intelligence, the kind that keeps your children breathing through the night. If you listen closely, you can almost hear the lodge working. The hides overlap like shingles. One panel covers the seam of another, so rain doesn't slip in, snow doesn't blow in, cold air doesn't sneak in through tiny cracks like a nosy neighbor. And where the walls meet the ground, they're anchored, weighted with stones, pegged down, so the wind can't lift the edges. Everything is sealed, not perfectly, not like plastic, but enough to create a different world inside. A world where your breath doesn't feel like it's breaking into pieces. A world where you can relax your shoulders, where you can unclench your jaw, where you can finally stop tensing against the cold. And if you're listening right now, in your own room, maybe you can do the same. Let your shoulders sink a little. This story has you. Now let's zoom out, because Native Americans isn't one single story. It's many. Different lands, different winters, different ways of building warmth. But there's a shared theme. They didn't wait for winter to arrive and then panic. They prepared, they stored food, They picked camp locations carefully. They knew where trees blocked wind. They knew where rivers froze safely. They knew where animals traveled. And this is where modern people get the wrong picture. We imagine winter camps as sad places, like everybody is miserable, shivering, counting the days until spring. But often, winter was a season of close living, a season of stories, teaching, mending, planning. Yes, it was hard, but it wasn't hopeless. It wasn't constant suffering. Sometimes winter meant more time together, more time for elders to speak, more time for children to learn by listening. So here's contrarian thought number 2. Winter camps weren't just about surviving the cold. They were about protecting community. The shelter holds heat, but it also holds people. Let's step outside again, gently, just for a moment. You feel the cold snap at your face. The wind touches your cheeks like icy fingers. Your breath fogs in front of you. The camp is quiet, but not dead quiet. There's always a little movement. Someone carrying wood. Someone checking stored food. Someone shaking snow from a robe. People don't just hang out in winter. Winter makes you earn everything. But even then, you can hear something else. Soft laughter. A low voice telling a story. A child asking a question. A baby fussing, then being soothed. And if you get close enough to a lodge, you see something comforting. A thin thread of smoke rising upward. The sign of life. The sign of warmth being tended. The sign that someone is awake so others can sleep. That idea alone can hit you in the chest if you let it. Because it's love in a practical form, not romantic, not dramatic, just someone staying alert so the fire doesn't die, someone putting the group ahead of their own comfort. And now, we're going back in sit. Slowly, quietly, you step through the low entrance. The cold stays behind you. The warmth meets you again. And now, we notice the sleeping spaces more closely. Because the coziest part of the story is here. The part where you understand how people actually slept. How did Native Americans stay warm through the long nights? The answer is not one magic trick. It's layers, and shared warmth, and smart positioning. You see mats on the ground, woven reeds, dry grass, sometimes evergreen boughs, and on top, robes, buffalo robes, especially on the plains. Heavy, soft, thick. They're not just blankets. They're like portable walls of warmth. If you've ever had a heavy blanket and felt your whole body relax, you understand the feeling. It tells your nervous system you're safe. And safety makes sleep possible. Now add something else. Not just one robe. Many, layer upon layer, robe upon robe. Some under you, some over you. Because the ground is a thief too. Cold ground steals heat. So they build distance between bodies and earth. Sometimes with raised platforms. Sometimes with thick bedding. Sometimes with both. And here's a detail people forget. Even if the air in the lodge is warmish, the ground can still be cold, so lifting up matters. It's like sleeping on a cold tile floor versus a mattress. Same air, different experience. Now look at where people sleep. Often in a ring around the fire, feet toward the warmth, heads away a little. so the heat reaches the feet first. And that makes sense. Cold feet keep you awake. Warm feet knock you out like a gentle spell. Some people even sleep with their feet toward the fire and their backs turned slightly to avoid overheating their face. Because yes, even in winter, you can get too warm. That's why the fire is small and steady, because comfort is balance, not maximum heat. This is another contrarian thought. Warmth isn't about blasting heat. It's about keeping heat. It's about holding on to what you already made. And families sleep close. Very close. You can picture it. Parents on either main. Children between, sometimes grandparents nearby, sometimes cousins and relatives in the same lodge. It's not random. It's an old system. Bodies produce heat. When you sleep close together, you share it. You recycle it. And if you think that sounds strange, remember something simple. When it's cold, people naturally huddle. We do it without thinking. We stand closer to friends at night. We pull closer on a couch. It's instinct. Native winter camps turned that instinct into a method. Children between parents as little embers, not because they're burdens, because they're precious, because you keep the smallest, most vulnerable ones in the safest, warmest place. And if you're starting to feel sleepy, that's okay. This is the perfect part to drift off. This is the warm center of the story. But we're going to keep going gently, because here's the mystery we hinted at earlier. How did smoke not choke everyone? How did they breathe? How did they keep warmth without turning the lodge into a smoky headache? This is where the engineering comes in, and it's surprisingly simple. First, the smoke hole. Second, the way air moves. Warm air rises, smoke rises with it. Fresh air slips in from low openings, sometimes from the entrance, sometimes from tiny gaps near the base. It's like a natural breathing system for the shelter. The lodge inhales cool air low and exhales smoke high. Not perfect, not sterile, but livable. And they adjust it. If wind changes, they adjust the flap. If fire grows, they adjust the opening. Someone is always aware of the air, not in a stressful way, in a normal way. Like you noticing a window is open. Like you pulling a blanket up. It's just part of living. And when the night comes, they bank the fire. That means they don't keep it flaming. They pull coals together, they cover them lightly with ash. They let the coals glow low and long so the heat continues, but the smoke reduces. It's like turning a bright lamp into a nightlight. Just enough. Now, let's pause for a simple question. Have you ever tried to sleep in a place where you didn't feel safe? It's hard. You can have blankets and warmth, but your mind stays alert. It listens. It scans. It stays half awake. That's why winter shelter isn't only physical. It's emotional. Inside the lodge, the world feels smaller. Boundaries are clear. The wind is outside. The fire is inside. The people are together. That creates a sense of safety. And safety is what lets a human body actually rest. So when we talk about winter camps, we're talking about psychology too, not just architecture, not just survival. This is a sleepy history story, but it's also a human story. Yeah. Now, let's add a little humor because sometimes we get too serious about history. Imagine someone in the lodge saying, "All right, everybody, tonight we will be warm." And winter is outside like, "Girl, please." And then the lodge just quietly holds warmth anyway. No argument, no speech, just results. That's the kind of confidence that comes from skill, not from vibes, not from motivation, skill, experience, preparation, and that's why the camps lasted. That's why people could sleep. If you're still listening, here's a mid-story hook, the kind you'd hear from a sleepless historian who can't stop thinking at 2 a.m. What if the greatest winter technology wasn't the shelter, but the schedule? Because one thing that helped people stay warm wasn't only what they built, it was what they did. They moved less at night. They conserved energy. They ate in ways that supported warmth. They wore the right materials. They kept their clothing dry. They managed sweat, because wet clothing is a disaster in cold weather. And they had roles. Someone gathers wood. Someone maintains the fire. Someone checks on children. Someone keeps tools ready. It's teamwork. And teamwork is also warmth. Because when you share labor, you reduce stress. And when stress goes down, sleep gets easier. So it's not just how did Native Americans stay warm, it's also how did they stay steady? How did they stay calm? How did they keep routine through winter? That's part of the secret too. Now very gently, we're going to widen out, because not every winter home was a skin lodge on the plains. Different regions meant different designs. And this is where the story becomes like gentle waves. Outside cold, step inside, find warmth. Outside cold, step inside, find warmth. Your brain starts to relax because it knows the pattern. So let's begin to visit the variations. Not fast, slow, like walking through snow without rushing. First, the teepee on the plains. Many people think teepees were only summer homes, but on the plains, tipis could be winter homes too, especially when properly covered and insulated. A tipi is cone-shaped. That shape matters. It sheds wind. It sheds snow. Wind hits the surface and slides upward. And the coverings overlap, often multiple layers, sometimes a liner inside to create an air gap like a double wall. And air gaps trap warmth. There's that idea again. Trapped air, simple, brilliant. The fire is central, the smoke hole is adjustable, the doorway is low, often faced away from the wind, and sometimes snow is banked around the base. Again, snow becomes a helper. And if you're thinking, snow as insulation sounds like something you'd see on a survival show, yes, except this wasn't a show. This was normal life. And people did it with kids and grandparents and daily tasks. Not just one person trying to prove something. So if you've ever watched a survival video and thought, wow, humans are amazing, remember this. Native winter camps were survival knowledge at community scale. That's a different level. Now, let's move east into forests. Here, you find wigwams and other domed shelters. These are built from saplings bent into shape, flexible frames, covered with bark or mats or hides. The dome shape holds warmth well, and bark is interesting. It's not fluffy, but it blocks wind and moisture. And when layered, it becomes a solid barrier. You step inside and you feel it. The air is calmer, less moving. And when air moves less, warmth stays. Inside, a small fire again. Smoke vent again. Sleeping areas raised or layered again. Families close again. It's a new skin on the same idea. Outside cold, inside warmth. Now, let's go to larger community homes. Longhouses. In some regions, longhouses sheltered many people. Bigger structure, more bodies, more shared heat, multiple fires along the center line, smoke holes in the roof, sleeping platforms along the sides. You can imagine the feel of it, not like a tiny lodge, more like a long corridor of warmth and quiet voices. The air is full of life, but still calm, still controlled. And because more people are inside, there's more heat produced by bodies alone. Sometimes, just having more bodies under one roof changes everything. This is another contrarian thought. Sometimes, the best way to stay warm is not to isolate, but to gather. Modern life sells us privacy. Winter sells us togetherness. Now we drift toward the earth lodges. We already peeked at one earlier, but let's slow it down and step inside again, as if we're doing it for the first time. From the outside, an earth lodge looks like a hill, a low mound covered in earth, sometimes with grass in warmer seasons, but in winter, snow. You might pass by it and not even notice. That's part of the genius. The wind has less to grab. The earth itself insulates. Deep ground stays warmer than the air in winter. Not hot, just stable. That stability matters. You walk into the entrance passage. The air changes immediately. It feels less sharp, less biting. Then you enter the main chamber, timbers overhead, a central fire, a smoke hole, raised sleeping platforms, stored food, tools, everything placed with care. This isn't temporary panic shelter. This is home. And the earth above you is thick, holding warmth like a slow memory. The storm can rage outside, but down here, the sound is softened. You can sleep. If your mind is drifting right now, good. If you're half awake and half dreaming, good. This is exactly where a history to fall asleep story should bring you. But before we let you sink too deep, there's one more quiet suspense thread to pull. Because warmth isn't only about shelter and fire. It's also about clothing and furs and the way people used materials with deep understanding. So let's glide into that now. Imagine a buffalo robe again. Heavy, dense, soft in a way that feels like it absorbs stress. Buffalo robes weren't just warm, they were durable. And their warmth wasn't just from thickness, it was from structure. Fur traps air, air warms, warm air stays. This is physics, but it feels like comfort. Now imagine leggings made from hide, moccasins lined properly, layers, not cotton. Cotton holds moisture and makes you cold. These people understood materials without needing a science lab. Because winter teaches you fast. Wet equals cold, dry equals life. So clothing was made to keep the body dry, to block wind, to allow movement without sweating too much. And there was a strong relationship between shelter and clothing, because you don't wear everything you own inside the lodge. If you sweat inside, you'll freeze outside. So people manage layers, they adjust, they know when to loosen, when to tighten, when to dry something near the fire. Again, it's not drama, it's routine. Now, let's return to the sleeping moment, because this is the cozy heart of our sleep stories tonight. The fire is banked, the coals glow, the lodge light is dim. People settle under robes, breathing slows, a baby shifts. Someone tucks the robe around the baby's shoulders. A child's hair spills across a fur. The wind outside rises slightly, then falls. Inside, the lodge holds its calm, and if you're listening with sleepy eyes, you might feel something surprising. This scene doesn't feel primitive. It feels familiar. It feels like your own home on a rainy night. The difference is only the materials. The emotional shape is the same. Warm center, cold outside, family close, light low. That is human, and it has been human for a long, long time. Because we've talked about warmth, but not yet about the night itself. What happens when the fire starts to fade? What happens at 2 a.m. when the wind changes direction? What happens when snow begins to fall harder? What happens when someone wakes and realizes the coals are too low? That's coming. In the next section, we'll walk through a full winter night in slow motion, from evening to midnight, to the quiet early hours, to the first hint of morning. You'll feel why winter camps weren't only survival. They were a kind of peace, a rhythm, a way of living that made rest possible, even in harsh seasons. For now, you don't need to hold on to every detail. If you're drifting off, let yourself drift. If you're awake, just listen. We're going to stay inside this warm circle a little longer, until the night deepens and the lodge becomes quieter, and the fire becomes a softer, redder glow, like a small heart beating in the center of the frozen world. And if you fall asleep before we reach morning, that's perfectly okay. That means the story did its job. Just listen and let the story carry you. The night deepens now. Not suddenly, not dramatically. It deepens the way winter always does. One quiet moment leaning into the next. Inside the lodge, the fire has changed. It's no longer lively. No sparks jumping. No flames stretching upward. Just coals. Soft, red, steady. They glow like a memory of heat rather than heat itself. And this is intentional, because a roaring fire wakes people. A low fire lets them rest. Someone, maybe an older child, maybe an adult who sleeps lightly, has already adjusted it. They pulled the coals closer together. covered part of them with ash, left just enough air. That person didn't make a big deal out of it. They didn't announce it. They just did it. Then they settled back under their robes. This is how winter nights pass, quietly, with small corrections. If you imagine the sound now, it's barely there. A faint crackle from the coals, the soft brush of fur as someone turns. Breathing, slow breathing. If you notice your own breath right now, you might find it slowing too. That's okay. You don't have to change it. The story isn't going anywhere fast. Outside, the wind has picked up a little, not enough to be a storm, just enough to remind the world that winter is still in charge. Snow drifts against the lodge walls, but the walls don't answer. They don't shake. They don't flap wildly. They're rounded, anchored, patient. The wind slides over them the way water slides over smooth stone. Inside, no one panics, no one leaps up, because this has happened before, many times. And here's something worth noticing. Fear often comes from surprise. Winter camps removed surprise. They expected wind, they expected cold, they expected snow. So when it came, it wasn't shocking. It was just winter doing winter things. And expectation creates calm. Somewhere in the lodge, a child wakes briefly, not fully, just enough to shift, to make a small sound. A parent stirs. A hand reaches out without opening eyes, pulls a robe closer. A gentle touch. The child settles. Breathing evens out again. Moments like this don't show up in history books, but they are history. This is what bedtime history really looks like. Not dates, not battles. This. Small acts of care in the dark. If you're still awake, you might be wondering, what about the cold air? Surely some of it sneaks in. Yes, a little, and that's good. Fresh air matters. Too much warmth without air makes things stale, so the lodge breathes slowly. Cold air enters near the ground. Warm air rises. Smoke drifts upward. The opening at the top does its quiet work. Nothing mechanical, nothing loud, just natural movement, like lungs. And if you imagine lying there now, wrapped in layers, feeling warmth at your back, cooler air near your face, you might realize something interesting. This balance is comfortable, not too hot, not too cold, just right. That just right feeling is rare and precious. Hours pass, but they don't feel like hours. Time in winter camps doesn't tick loudly. It drifts, measured by fire tending, by dreams, by the subtle shift of bodies under robes. Someone wakes briefly, half asleep, feeds the fire a small piece of wood, just enough to keep the coals alive, not enough to flare. Then they lie back down, eyes closing before their head fully settles. You might recognize that feeling, waking at night, doing one small thing, then drifting right back into sleep. That's the rhythm. And if you're drifting now, if the words feel softer, that's not accidental. This is where many people fall asleep to history. This is where the sleepless historian finally rests. Let's follow the night a little farther. Outside, the sky is dark. Stars are sharp and still. Clouds pass slowly like heavy blankets pulled across the sky. Snow begins again, light at first, then steady, each flake landing without sound, building layer upon layer, covering tracks, softening edges. The camp grows quieter as the world is padded with white. Inside the lodge, the snow actually helps. It seals gaps. It presses gently against the walls. It blocks wind, so the warmth inside holds even better. This is one of those moments where winter seems to contradict itself. The thing that threatens also protects. Cold outside helps warmth inside. You don't have to remember that. You can just feel it. Now, let's shift our focus gently. Not away from the lodge, but within it. Imagine the dreams happening around you. A child dreaming of running through tall grass that doesn't exist right now. An elder dreaming of a hunt long past. Someone dreaming of spring without knowing it yet. Dreams don't care about seasons, they travel freely. And that's another quiet gift of warmth and safety. When you feel secure, your mind wanders, it imagines, it rests. If you've ever noticed that you dream more deeply when you feel safe, that's not coincidence. Safety invites sleep, and sleep invites healing. Now, very slowly, the night begins to change. Not toward morning yet, but toward that deepest part of night, the quietest part, the time when even the wind seems to pause. This is when the fire is lowest. The coals dim, still warm, but barely glowing. The lodge is dark now, not pitch black, but shadowed. Shapes blend together. Walls disappear into the curve of the roof, and if you were lying here, you might not be able to tell where one person ends and another begins. Drawed warmth, breath, softness. This is the heart of the winter night, and it's peaceful, not dramatic, not frightening, peaceful. That might surprise you, because we often imagine ancient winters as terrifying. But fear needs chaos, and winter camps reduced chaos. They turned winter into something predictable, manageable, almost familiar. If you're listening from your own bed, maybe notice how similar this feels. The way your blankets press gently, the way sounds are muted at night, the way your thoughts slow. Even though centuries separate you from this lodge, your body understands this moment because bodies haven't changed much. Cold still feels cold. Warmth still feels good. Sleep still needs safety. That's the bridge between then and now. That's why bedtime stories work. They connect something ancient to something personal. Now, let's allow ourselves to move again, very gently. We're going to drift, not walk, to another shelter, another winter home. Not because something is wrong here, but because winter camps were many, and variety itself is calming. Like hearing the same song played in a slightly different key. We float over snow-covered land. The lodge fades behind us. Its warmth lingers, Ahead, the land dips. Trees grow thicker. The wind sounds different here, filtered, broken by branches. We approach another winter home, a wigwam. Its rounded shape rises among the trees, covered in bark and mats. Snow rests on its sides. Inside, the story repeats. Low entrance, warm air, small fire, raised sleeping areas. Families close, the same pattern, different materials. Your brain recognizes the rhythm now. Outside cold, inside warm, outside loud, inside quiet, outside wide, inside close. And because the pattern repeats, your mind relaxes even more. Nothing new to solve, nothing to track, just familiarity. We don't stay long, we don't need to. The feeling is what matters. Now, farther north, we drift again. The land opens, the cold sharpens, the sky feels bigger. Here, winter is harsher, longer. People here had to solve an even harder puzzle, and they did. We see snow houses, rounded domes made of blocks of snow. At first glance, it feels impossible. Snow as shelter? But inside, the air is calm, still, warm enough. Bodies and lamps heat the space. Snow blocks wind. Snow traps air. Snow becomes wall. And again, the same idea appears. Use what winter gives you. Don't fight it. Shape it. Live with it. Inside, people sleep on raised platforms, furs piled high. A small lamp burns steadily. Someone watches it for a while, then sleeps. Someone else wakes later. The flame continues. Not big, just enough. That phrase again. Just enough. Now, let's pause the movement. Let's rest in one place again. Because the night is almost ready to turn. Not into morning, but into that pre-dawn stillness. The quietest time, the time when dreams deepen. Inside whichever winter home you imagine now, the fire is barely there. The lamp flickers softly. Breathing is slow. Even outside, the cold holds steady, but it doesn't press. It waits. Inside, the warmth remains. The thing that sneaks up on you if you listen long enough. These winter camps weren't just clever, they were kind. Kind to bodies, kind to minds, kind to relationships. They created spaces where rest was possible, even when the world outside was harsh. And that's a lesson that still matters. Because many of us live in modern comfort, but don't feel rested. We have heat, but not always warmth. We have space, but not always safety. We have silence, but not always peace. Winter camps remind us that rest is designed. It doesn't just happen. It's built layer by layer, choice by choice. If your eyes are closed now, you don't need to open them. If you're still listening, you don't need to analyze. Just let the images blur. Let the lodge soften. Let the fire dim. Let the night hold you. Because we're approaching the part of the story where nothing new happens. Only continuation. Only stillness. Only rest. the sky begins to lighten. Just barely. Not enough to call it dawn. Just a hint. A soft gray pressing gently against the dark. Inside the lodge, no one moves yet. There's no rush, no alarm. Morning doesn't arrive with urgency. It arrives when it arrives. Someone will wake soon. They'll feed the fire. The lodge will brighten. The day will begin. But that's not for you right now. That's for later. For now, you are still inside the warm circle, still wrapped, still safe, still resting. And whether you fall asleep here, or drift in and out, or stay awake until the end, you've already received the quiet gift of this story. A reminder that humans have always known how to care for one another, even in frozen places, even in hard seasons. And that rest, real rest, is something we build. You don't have to do anything now. Just let the story keep watch while you sleep. The night stays with us a little longer, not because anything is unfinished, not because there's danger, but because winter nights don't hurry. Inside the lodge, the air feels heavier now, not stale, just settled. The kind of air that's been warmed again and again, held, returned. Breathing here feels different, slower, deeper. If you imagine lying beneath the robes, you might notice how your body presses gently into the layers below you. The ground feels far away, distant, no longer a threat. And that distance matters, because cold rises from the earth. It creeps upward. So people built height into their rest. Platforms, thick bedding, anything to lift the body just enough. It's a small change, but small changes add up. That's a theme winter keeps teaching. Somewhere nearby, the lodge gives a soft sound, not a creak of weakness, more like a stretch, wood adjusting to cold, hide tightening slightly as the air outside drops in temperature. These sounds don't alarm anyone. They're familiar. They mean the shelter is alive, working, holding. If you live in a place long enough, you learn its voice. This lodge has a voice, and it's saying, "I've got you." Outside, the snow keeps falling. Slow, patient. It covers footprints between the lodges. It smooths the paths. By morning, the camp will look untouched, as if no one moved at all. Winter has a way of erasing effort. But the effort still mattered. The fire still burned. The shelter still stood. The people still slept. You don't need visible proof for something to be real. Sometimes rest leaves no trace. Inside, a person stirs. Just once. They roll slightly, a robe slides, then stillness again. Dreams shift. One dream fades into another. A memory blends with imagination. Someone dreams of warm seasons. Someone dreams of animals. Someone dreams of nothing at all. Sleep doesn't need content. It just needs permission. And permission has been granted here. Let's stay with this stillness for a moment. No movement, no change, just warmth and breath. If your thoughts try to wander, that's fine. They can wander like the wind outside. They don't need to enter the lodge. They can circle, then move on. Inside, where you are, it remains calm. Now, very gently, the lodge seems even smaller, not because it shrinks, but because your awareness narrows. The outside world fades, the edges blur. This is that place between waking and sleep. The place where you don't need to hold on to anything. You might notice that words feel farther apart now. Longer pauses. That's intentional. The story doesn't need to fill every moment. Silence is part of it, just like it's part of winter nights. If you listen closely, you can hear the fire breathing, not crackling, just a faint whisper of heat, a soft exhale, then nothing, then another. This fire doesn't demand attention. It doesn't perform. It simply exists. And that's enough. Think about how much effort modern life puts into pretending winter doesn't exist. Bright lights, constant noise, schedules that don't slow, and yet so many people feel tired all the time. Winter camps did the opposite. They accepted the season. They leaned into it. They slept more, moved less, stayed closer. They let winter be winter. And because of that, winter didn't steal everything. It became a different kind of time, a slower time, a quieter time, a time for listening. Inside the lodge, someone coughs softly. Not sick, just adjusting to smoke. A hand reaches up, moves a flap near the smoke hole. A small change. The air shifts. The cough stops. No words exchanged, no irritation. This is normal. This is routine. It's easy to forget how much trust lives in moments like that. Trust that someone will notice. Trust that someone will respond. Trust that the system works. That trust makes sleep deeper. The night continues. Not moving toward anything, just being night. Outside, animals move. A fox passes the edge of the camp. It pauses, listens, hears almost nothing. No panic, no shouting, just the quiet breathing of many people inside their shelters. The fox moves on. The camp remains. If you imagine yourself here now, not as an observer, but as someone resting, you might notice something unexpected. You don't feel primitive. You don't feel deprived. You feel okay, comfortable, held. That's important because it tells us something. Human comfort doesn't require complexity. It requires care and attention and understanding how a few simple things work together. Let's let the lodge fade just a little, not disappear, just soften. The shapes blur, the edges melt into darkness, the fire becomes a red glow, the people become gentle outlines, and what remains is the feeling, warmth, closeness, rest. That feeling stays with you even as the images drift. We're going to move again, but slower than before, as if we're drifting through a dream. We pass other winter homes, each one quiet, each one holding warmth in its own way. Some larger, some smaller, some low to the ground, some rising gently, but all of them share that same center. Fire, breath, bodies, care. It's almost hypnotic. The repetition, the reliability. Your mind doesn't need novelty now. It needs reassurance, and that's what repetition provides. Let's pause on one more lodge, not because it's special, but because it's ordinary. Inside, an elder sleeps near the fire, closer than others. They feel the cold more easily, so they're placed where warmth is strongest. This isn't charity, it's respect. The group understands that strength changes with age. Needs change, roles shift, and winter doesn't argue with that. It just asks that you adapt. So they do. Quietly. Naturally. A child near the edge of the sleeping area kicks off a covering in sleep. A parent notices, even half asleep, reaches over, pulls it back, tucks it in. The child doesn't wake. That small movement contains everything you need to know about winter survival. Pay attention. Respond. Care. That's it. No heroics, no speeches. Just presence. If you're listening to this as a sleep story, this is the part where many people fully drift off. The mind stops tracking sentences. Words become sounds. Images blend, and that's okay. You don't miss anything important. The story isn't building toward a twist. It's building toward rest. The cold outside reaches its deepest point. This is often the coldest hour, just before dawn. The air feels dense. Still, inside, the lodge is quiet. The fire is almost gone, but the warmth remains. Stored in walls, stored in bedding, stored in bodies. That's the secret most people miss. Heat doesn't vanish instantly. If you build well, it lingers. That's true for shelters, and it's true for moments of rest. If you rest well, it carries you. Few stars fade as the sky lightens, just slightly. Not enough to notice unless you're watching closely. Inside, no one moves yet. There's no reason to. The day will come, but it doesn't need to be rushed. If you've ever woken too early and wished you could stay wrapped just a little longer, you understand this moment. That wish isn't laziness, it's wisdom. Soon, later, not now, someone will rise. They'll feed the fire, light will return, the lodge will wake. But that's not this moment. This moment belongs to sleep, to stillness, to the quiet success of making it through another winter night. And that success doesn't shout, it whispers. As we begin to gently prepare for the final part of our journey, there's nothing new you need to learn. No new images, no new facts, only a soft remembering. That warmth was not accidental. That sleep was protected. That people planned for this. And because they did, winter became livable, even peaceful. If your body feels heavy now, let it be heavy. If your thoughts feel distant, let them drift. The story doesn't need you anymore. It can stand on its own, like a lodge in the snow, holding warmth, holding quiet, holding the night. And you can rest inside that feeling for as long as you need. The night loosens its grip slowly, not like a door opening, more like a blanket slipping down an inch at a time. Inside the lodge, nothing announces the change. No bells, no sharp light, just a subtle shift. The air feels a little different now, not warmer, not colder, simply lighter. Breath moves more easily. If you imagine yourself still lying there wrapped in layers, you might feel that your body has settled completely. No tension left to release, no edge left to soften. This is the deepest rest, the kind that doesn't ask permission. Somewhere, far above the lodge, the sky has begun to thin. The stars don't vanish all at once. They fade politely, one by one. Clouds drift slowly, like thoughts you don't need anymore. The snow has stopped falling. The world outside is smooth now, quiet, reset. Inside, the warmth remains, not because the fire is strong, but because everything worked. That's the quiet miracle of winter camps. Nothing flashy happened, nothing dramatic. And yet, everyone slept. Let's linger here, because this is the part we usually skip in stories. We jump from night to morning, but this in-between space matters. The hours when nothing happens. The hours when the body repairs itself. When memory organizes. When emotion settles. These hours are where survival actually lives. Not in the hunt, not in the storm, in rest. And winter camps were built to protect rest. If you could hear inside the lodge right now, you might notice how even breathing has changed. Longer exhales, softer inhales, breath that doesn't need attention. Your own breath might be doing the same thing, and if you notice it, that's fine. If you don't, that's even better. Now let's gently widen our awareness again, not to pull you out of rest, just to remind you of the bigger picture. Across the frozen plains, across forests and rivers and hills, thousands of winter camps are doing the same thing. All different. All similar. Small pockets of warmth scattered across a cold continent, each one holding a version of this same moment. Someone sleeping deeply, someone dreaming lightly, someone half awake, half dreaming, knowing they're safe. This is not one story, it's many stories happening at once, and that thought can be strangely comforting. You are not alone in rest. Time moves, but not forward in a straight line. It pools, it drifts, it stretches, and eventually something shifts inside the lodge. Not sound, not movement, awareness. Someone wakes, not fully, just enough to know it's almost time. They don't rush. They lie there for a moment, feeling the warmth, listening to the quiet, letting the last piece of night finish its work. This person has done this many times. They know winter mornings. They know how slowly to move. They sit up carefully, so they don't wake others. The robes slide, the air touches their face. Cooler than before. That tells them what they need to know. The fire needs attention. They move toward it. Hands reach out, feel the coals still warm. Good. They add a small piece of wood, not big, just enough. The coals brighten, a faint flame appears. The lodge breathes again. Smoke rises slowly toward the opening above. The air shifts. Freshness enters, still quiet, still calm. That person sits for a moment, watching, making sure everything is balanced. They don't feel heroic. They feel normal. This is what mornings are for, and that's another quiet lesson. Survival doesn't feel dramatic when it's working. It feels ordinary. As the fire grows slightly brighter, the lodge becomes visible again. Not fully lit, just enough to see shapes. The curve of the walls. The sleeping forms, the bundles of tools and clothing, the soft disorder of real life. Someone sighs in their sleep. Someone shifts. No one wakes yet. There's no reason to. The day isn't ready. Outside, light spreads gently. The snow reflects it. The world turns from black to deep blue, then to gray. Still cold, but different. Winter mornings don't warm quickly. They take their time. Inside the lodge, warmth holds. The fire now has a quiet flame. The air is fresh. The balance remains. Eventually, another person stirs. Then another, slowly, no alarms, no urgency. People wake the way bodies want to wake, stretching under robes, blinking slowly, letting the fire and the light do the work. Children wake last, as they should. Someone smiles at a child's messy hair. Someone whispers. Someone laughs softly. Winter doesn't erase joy. It just asks you to be quieter about it. Now the lodge is awake. Not bustling, just alive. Someone prepares a simple meal. Something warm. Steam rises. The smell fills the space. Food matters more in winter, not fancy food. Reliable food. The kind that reminds the body it's okay. The kind that replaces energy without demanding effort. People eat slowly. Warmth spreads from the inside out. The day begins.
But before we follow the day, let's pause. Because this story isn't about daytime, it's about how night was held. And now, looking back, the answer to our original question feels clearer. How did Native Americans stay warm?
They didn't rely on one thing. They relied on systems. Shelter designed for wind and snow. Fire sized for balance, not drama. Clothing made to trap air, not hold moisture. Sleeping arrangements built around shared warmth. Schedules that respected winter. And most of all, community. That's the part that often gets lost. You can build a perfect shelter. You can have the right materials, but without cooperation, without awareness of one another, winter wins. Winter camps worked because people worked together, quietly, consistently, without needing credit. As the day outside grows brighter, people begin to move. Some go out to check the weather, some gather wood, some tend to tasks inside. Life continues, but it continues from a place of rest, and that matters. Because exhaustion makes mistakes. Rest prevents them. Winter camps understood that deeply. Now, let's step back one last time. Not into the cold, but into perspective. If you zoom out far enough, you see something beautiful. Human beings across thousands of years, across many cultures, solving the same problem in different ways. Cold, darkness, long nights. And the solutions are not loud. They are patient, layered, shared. That's why these stories are good to fall asleep to. They don't spike your attention, they lower it. They remind your nervous system that warmth and safety are possible, even when the world outside feels harsh. If you're still awake now, you might feel a gentle heaviness behind your eyes, or maybe you're already drifting. That's perfect. We're entering the final phase, the part where we don't add anything new. We only gather what we've already felt. We walked across frozen plains, We stepped into winter lodges. We watched fires burn low and steady. We felt robes pile up. We listened to breathing slow. We saw snow become insulation. We saw wind slide harmlessly away. We watched night pass without fear, and in doing so, we saw something quietly hopeful, that humans are not fragile. They are adaptable, thoughtful, caring, and capable of creating warmth together. Now, you don't need to picture lodges anymore. You don't need to imagine snow. You don't need to follow words. All of that can fade. What remains is the feeling, warmth, support, quiet. That feeling can stay with you, even after the story ends. The story is ending now, not abruptly, just gently stepping aside, like someone leaving a room without turning on the lights. You don't have to follow it out. You can stay, wrapped, safe, still. Let the night keep going without the story. Let sleep take over completely. The fire has been tended. The shelter holds. The wind can do whatever it wants outside. In here, you are warm and you can rest. The story doesn't really end here. It simply grows quieter, like embers settling deeper into ash, like footsteps fading into snow. So we'll stay a while longer, in that quiet, not to teach anything new, not to add details, just to let the calm stretch out, wide and gentle, until sleep feels inevitable. Imagine that the lodge, whichever one you've settled into in your mind, is still there, still warm, still holding. The fire is no longer something you watch. It's something you trust. It does its work without asking for attention. You don't need to check it. You don't need to worry. It has already proven itself. And that trust is what allows your body to soften completely. Outside, the frozen plains are bright now. Not warm, just bright. The sun sits low in the sky, pale and distant, offering light without heat. Snow reflects it back upward, so the world seems softly lit from every direction. There are no harsh shadows. Everything looks smoother, kinder. Winter mornings are honest like that. They don't promise comfort, but they don't threaten either. They simply exist. Inside the winter camp, the rhythm of the day is unhurried. No one leaps to their feet. No one rushes to be first. People move when their bodies are ready. Some sit quietly, wrapped in robes, staring at the fire. Some speak in low voices. Some stretch stiff muscles slowly, carefully, like animals waking after a long rest. There is no shame in moving slowly. Winter doesn't reward speed, it rewards steadiness. If you imagine listening closely, you might hear soft sounds. The scrape of a pot being moved, the dull thump of wood set down, the whisper of robes brushing against one another. Even these sounds feel padded by snow, muted, gentle, and your own space, wherever you are listening from, might feel similar. The room around you is likely quiet. The edges softened by night or early morning. You don't need to engage with it. You're allowed to stay inside this calm pocket. One of the quiet truths of winter camps is this: they taught people when not to do things, when not to travel, when not to push, when not to waste energy. And that wisdom feels especially important now, because so much of modern life teaches the opposite. Always moving, always doing, always proving. Winter camps remind us that rest is not laziness. It is strategy. It is respect for limits. It is how you last. The elders in these camps understood something deep. They had seen many winters. They had watched people who ignored the season, people who rushed, people who overreached. They knew winter doesn't respond to force. It responds to patience. So they taught the young ones to slow down, to notice the land, to listen to the wind, to feel temperature shifts on their skin, to recognize when it was time to stop. And that knowledge was passed quietly, not in lectures, but in lived example. If you're still listening, let your attention soften again. There is nothing here to analyze, nothing to hold. You don't need to remember what kind of lodge you're in or which region we're imagining. You don't need to remember names or materials or facts. You can let all of that dissolve. What remains is simpler. A sense of being sheltered, a sense of being allowed to rest. The people in the winter camp will go on with their day. They will tend to tasks. They will check traps. They will gather wood. They will plan. They will wait. They will share stories later. And then night will come again. Because winter nights always return, and when they do, the same preparations will be made. The fire will be adjusted, the robes will be layered, the children will be placed safely, the wind will be left outside. Again and again and again, that repetition is comforting, because it tells you this worked before. It will work again. Now let's bring that understanding closer to you. You don't live in a winter camp, but your body still responds to the same signals: low light, steady warmth, quiet, predictable rhythm. When those are present, sleep comes more easily. That's not weakness, that's biology. Your body hasn't changed much since those winter nights. It still seeks the same conditions. And tonight, in your own way, you've created them. You've chosen to lie down, to listen, to slow. That choice matters. If your mind wanders now, that's fine. It can wander without effort, like a path covered in snow. You don't need to follow it. You don't need to push it away. Just let it wander until it gets tired and sits down. Thoughts do that when they're not chased. Imagine the lodge at night again. Not because you need to see it, but because it's comforting to know it exists. Somewhere in the frozen plains of history, somewhere in memory, somewhere in imagination. A place where people solved the cold not with panic, but with understanding. That knowledge didn't disappear. It lives on. In stories. In instincts. In the way you pull a blanket up when you're tired. In the way you seek warmth and quiet without thinking. You're part of that long line, even now. The wind outside the lodge rises once more. Just a little. It moves across the snow, lifts it, sets it down again. The sound is distant, soft, like waves breaking far away. Inside, no one stirs. The shelter holds, the fire glows faintly, the warmth stays. This contrast between movement outside and stillness inside is powerful. It tells your nervous system you are protected. You can let go. If your eyes are still open, they may feel heavy now. You don't need to keep them open. You don't need to keep listening closely. You can let the words blur. Let them fade into sound. Let sound fade into silence. The story doesn't need your attention anymore. It will end on its own, like the night does. The frozen plains remain. They always will. Snow will fall again. Wind will move again. Cold will return again. And somewhere, always, there will be people finding ways to meet it. With shelter, with warmth, with care. That knowledge is steady. It doesn't hurry. It doesn't disappear. It waits. You can rest now, fully, deeply, as if you were lying under layers of robes, as if a small fire were glowing nearby, as if the wind were far away, as if nothing is required of you, because right now, nothing is. The story has done its work. You are warm, you are safe, you are allowed to sleep. The quiet continues. It stretches out, wide and gentle. Like the plains themselves, there is no rush to fill it. No need to explain anything more. The story has already carried you where it needed to go. So now we simply remain here, in the calm that comes after understanding. If you imagine the winter camp again, it feels almost timeless now. Not tied to a specific year, not fixed in one place, just a human response to cold and darkness. The shelters stand quietly under the pale sky. Snow rests on their roofs like a careful hand. Smoke rises in thin, patient lines, then disappears. Inside, people move with ease, not because life is easy, but because it is familiar. Familiarity softens effort. One person sits near the fire, warming their hands, not because they're freezing, but because warmth feels good. Another person mends a small tear in a robe. Slow stitches, no hurry. A child traces shapes in the dust near the sleeping area, half awake, half dreaming. Someone hums quietly. Not a song meant to be heard, just sound meant to exist. These are the small textures of winter life. They don't demand attention. They don't announce themselves. They simply happen. And that's important, because when life feels overwhelming, it's often because everything feels loud and demanding. Winter camps remind us that life doesn't have to be that way. You can live gently. You can move slowly. You can let some moments be quiet and unproductive. The world does not collapse when you do it. In fact, it often steadies. If you notice your own body now, you might feel how still it is, how little effort it's making. Your muscles are no longer preparing for action. Your mind is no longer scanning. This is rest. Not the kind you schedule, the kind that arrives when conditions are right. The people in the winter camp understand something else too. They know that warmth is not infinite. It must be respected, so they don't waste it. They don't throw open the shelter for no reason. They don't keep fires blazing unnecessarily. They don't wander far in the cold without purpose. Everything has intention, and intention conserves energy. That's another quiet lesson winter teaches. Outside, the day continues its slow climb. Light spreads across the snow. Animals leave tracks. Birds move cautiously. The world stirs inside. The camp responds in its own time. Someone steps outside briefly. They pull their robe tight. The cold meets them immediately. Sharp, clear, honest. They take note of the sky, the wind, the snow. Then they step back inside. The warmth welcomes them again. They don't linger outside to prove anything. They gathered the information they needed, nothing more. This balance between engagement and retreat is another reason winter camps worked. People didn't stay inside out of fear. They went out when needed. They returned when it was wise. They listened to conditions, and they listened to their bodies. That listening kept them alive. It also kept them sane. If you let your mind drift now, it might wander to your own life, your own pace, your own winters, literal or emotional. You don't need to analyze that. Just notice if anything softens. Sometimes stories do that quietly. They don't give answers. They create space. Back in the lodge, someone pours warm liquid into a simple bowl. Steam rises. The smell is comforting, familiar. It's shared without ceremony. Hands pass it carefully. People sip slowly. The warmth spreads, not rushed. This moment is not about hunger. It's about continuity. Warmth moving from fire to food to body. A simple chain. As the day goes on, tasks will happen. They always do. But winter camps do not exhaust themselves before noon. Energy is precious. Movement is measured. Work is steady, not frantic. Rest is built in, not earned. That mindset changes everything. If your eyes have been closed for a while now, you may not even be following these words consciously. That's fine. They don't require conscious attention. They can pass through like distant wind, or like snow sliding off a roof. You don't need to catch them. Imagine the lodge again as evening approaches. The day has passed quietly. People return. Snow clings to clothing. Robes are shaken out. Boots are set aside. Wet things are dried near the fire. The shelter adjusts to night again. It always does. This cycle, day, night, warmth, rest, continues. Predictable, reliable. That predictability is calming. It tells the nervous system what to expect. It removes the need for constant vigilance. Night comes early in winter. The light fades quickly, but no one panics. The lodge brightens from within. Firelight replaces daylight. The world shrinks again. Inside is enough. Children are guided to sleeping places. Robes are layered. The fire is adjusted. Stories begin. Not loud stories, soft ones. Stories that wander. Stories that don't need endings. Stories that drift. And one by one, voices trail off. Breathing slows. Sleep returns. This is the rhythm that carried people through long winters. Not excitement, not distraction, but rhythm. Steady, reliable, gentle. And rhythm is something your body understands instinctively. That's why this kind of history is easy to fall asleep to. It speaks to older parts of you, parts that don't need explanation. If your thoughts try to resurface now, lists, worries, plans, you don't need to push them away. You can imagine them waiting outside the lodge. They're not banned. They're just not needed inside. They can stand in the cold for a while. You are allowed warmth. The night deepens again. The fire settles. The lodge holds. Everything we've described happens again and again across many winters, across many years, until it becomes normal. And normal is what allows humans to live in hard places. Not strength, not toughness, normality, routine, care. As this story continues to fade, there is nothing left to prove, nothing left to explain. Only the feeling remains. A feeling of being enclosed, protected, supported. That feeling doesn't need images. It doesn't need words. It can exist on its own. The frozen plains stretch out beyond the camp, wide, quiet, unbothered. Winter does what winter does, and inside small human-made circles, warmth continues. Not loud, not flashy, just present. You can stay here as long as you like, wrapped in that sense of safety, letting your breath slow, letting your body rest, letting sleep take over completely. The story will not ask you to wake. It will not pull you back. It will simply end softly, without interruption, and you can remain warm and still for as long as you need. The story slows now. Not because there's nothing left to say, but because nothing more is needed. The winter camps rest behind us, quiet and warm beneath their blankets of snow. The fires have burned low, their coals glowing softly, steady and patient, doing the last gentle work of the night. Inside the lodges, breathing is slow and even. Robes are pulled close. Bodies are still. Outside, the wind has eased. The land lies calm and pale, as if winter itself has decided to rest for a while. You don't need to follow any more images now. You don't need to remember what came before. The shelters, the fires, the careful planning, they've already done their work. Warmth has been made. Safety has been held. Sleep has been allowed. If your thoughts drift, let them drift. If the words blur, let them blur. Nothing here needs your attention anymore. Imagine yourself lying comfortably, wrapped in something soft and familiar. The world beyond your walls feels far away, muted and gentle. Breath moves in and out on its own. Slow, unforced, reliable. Just like those winter camps built to last through long nights, you are supported right now by the surface beneath you, by the quiet around you, by the simple fact that you are allowed to rest. The story doesn't end sharply. It fades, the way firelight fades at the edge of a room, the way snowfall fades into silence. Somewhere far back in time, people sleep through the coldest hours of winter. Somewhere right now, you are doing the same. There is nothing you need to prepare for. Nothing you need to solve. Morning will come when it comes. Until then, you can stay here, warm, safe, and unbothered by the world outside. The frozen plains remain, vast and quiet, holding their secrets beneath the snow. And inside that cold world, warmth continues, steady, shared, and calm. The story is ending now, but you don't have to go anywhere. You can remain here at rest for as long as you need. Good night.